you could have went officer, right?
You put all that time doing 4 years of college just to come in as enlisted?
Do you know you could have been living way better?
Did you not hear that officer was a thing when you were trying to join the military?
Prelo, what were you thinking? You could have definitely been an officer. Why are you a junior enlisted soldier right now? Those are some things that you have probably heard or will hear if you choose to come into the military as a junior enlisted soldier when you have a bachelor's degree.
Oh yeah, on that beat me if you wanna reach me. Just can't wait until I hear myself away.
Welcome back, y'all. Thank you for tuning in today. If you're new, welcome. And if you've been watching me, thank you for tuning in again. I'm here today to talk about the everlasting question that I have heard since I've been in the military and some things that I heard when I was going through the process of getting into the military, which is going the officer route since you already have a 4-year degree. So I want to start off the video by telling you the knowledge that I had on the officer route to make me even inquire about it. And that's because when I was first being presented with the information that I was able to go officer because of me having completed college, I said, okay, yeah, I can ask my recruiters about that when I start the recruitment process. Mom, my dad, I have a cousin that medically retired as a major. They were the main ones that told me about the officer path. My cousin was like, she loved being an officer. It definitely was well worth it. She did say that it came with a better and promising a life since you will come in higher ranking and you'll get what comes with that. And she also told me some other things that she thought that she felt made the officer path better. My mom and my dad were on the enlisted side, so they did not have much knowledge on the officer route, but the things they told me was that, yeah, basically the officers, they got it good. You know, enlisted side, I always perceive the officer side as having it way better than they do, but they couldn't really give me enough information, so I did start inquiring about going the officer route when I was meeting up with recruiters. Now, I did go over the officer process with my first Army recruiter, and then I asked about the officer route with my Air Force recruiter. So I do want to tell you about some things that they were telling me as recruiters that you might be hearing right now that I heard, and I just want to kind of debunk some of those myths that they might be telling you, and just giving you some things to think about and what you should possibly do different than I did, so that way you won't regret the decision to come in with the path that's best for you, because the path that you choose with the military is definitely the most important. When I did meet up with my first Army recruiter, I did ask him about the officer route. So the first thing you might be hearing from a recruiter is that you have to be meeting up with the officer recruiter to even start the officer path. And this was not an officer recruiter, but their job as recruiters is to get you in touch with officers so that way you can ask them questions that they will be able to answer better than they can. When I did start the process of trying to connect with the officer recruiter through my first Army recruiter, he linked me with the ROTC captain that was present at my college at MTSU, and he said, hey, he's the one that can answer a lot of your questions, and he basically gave me his number, and I was like, yeah, I want to meet up with you, discuss the officer path. So I did. I went to the ROTC department at my school where I was able to talk to him and a couple of other officers, and the main thing he said was, I want to see what you're about. We work out in the morning time from so and so time, and I want you to come and start working out with us so we can see what you have to offer the Army, especially as an officer. So I did do that, and around that time I was deep into my fitness, y'all. Like, nothing was unstable about it, so I already knew I was gonna be able to come in and show my stuff, which of course, you know, they had nothing to say as far as my physical fitness. One thing they were telling me is going back to school through the ROTC path and commission it over once I graduate. He was able to ask me to speak with the program director of the ROTC department, which he started. This was a completely different guy. He was a retired vet, and he was just kind of telling me the process of going ROTC, you know, telling me about the stipends, tuition assistance, room and board, things that they'll provide to me as a college student that also has to take, of course, ROTC classes. You know, I had the same responsibilities as they do, and also taking military courses, but my main job would be to complete my master's because I will be going back for my master's. When I look back, a lot of the information he gave me was solid information that I really should have considered, but as you know from me mentioning in the previous videos, I had just graduated when I started this process with my first Army recruiter. It was 2019 summer. So I wasn't really in the mind state that I wanted to go back to school just yet. I was ready to take a break. You know, a lot of people say it takes a year off or so from college because you gotta mentally relax from that experience, and I feel like I needed to kind of switch gears and maybe start working out and getting myself prepared to start back school in the future or start entering the workforce. So basically, I was hearing the guy at the time, but I wasn't really hearing him, and I started realizing that I was not really interested in commissioning over through the ROTC program, because if I was, I wouldn't be able to start it just yet because I wasn't ready to start something as serious as a master's degree at that moment in time. Fast forward, I did ask about the officer path through my Air Force recruiter, and let me just say this inquiry was very short-lived because if you've spoken with Air Force recruiters so far, they are very, I guess, nonchalant when it comes to getting recruits in, because so many people are making the Air Force the go-to, the top tier branch. So they are in a mind state that they don't have to beg any recruit to join the team because everybody wants to join their team anyway. So you can only imagine if you're trying to come in as an officer in the Air Force. I can only imagine the type of luxury lifestyle they live when the regular enlisted, lower enlisted soldiers live a luxury lifestyle in the Air Force, so you know the officers are. But anyways, he did put me in touch with an officer, but I only talked to her on the phone, and immediately, y'all, she was like, "What is your degree in?" And I was like, "Well, it's in psychology." She said, "We're not interested in psychology degrees with the officer route." She said, "We are looking for tech-related degrees and people that have similar degrees that can be used very beneficially to the Air Force." And I guess they consider a psychology degree as not holding enough weight, which of course we hear that in psychology, that a lot of people look at psychology with the stigma that is growing, but it's not yet truly needed because it's kind of cliche still. So she basically shut it down that, hey, the first thing first, I am looking at the degree you have, and the degree you have, we're not truly interested in it. But then you will also have to take the officer, I think it's the AFOQT, the officer test that you would have to take with the Air Force, because you know they're very paper and written test driven. So she was like, and that's another step of it, but the main thing is what you're trying to do as an officer coming in. We can't do nothing with you. And I know now that that lady basically didn't give me no real information, and I really should have just disregarded her and kept searching for another officer with the Air Force if I truly felt like I wanted to go that path. But of course, I didn't truly want to go that path, and more so I was definitely leaning towards the enlisted side in the Air Force. But on the Army side, I definitely was leaning more on the officer side. So now let's transition into some things that you might be hearing about, different paths that you can take to come into the military as an officer, and what the requirements are, and whether or not you should heavily consider it or just do what you gotta do and go enlisted. It's the easiest way, and hey, it's not that bad if you choose to go that way. So number one, a way you can commission into the military as an officer. I do want you to know that I'm speaking more so in light of the Army, not other branches, because I am most familiar with the Army. So you can go straight through OCS, which is Officer Candidate School. You will start the entire process like every other civilian, but you'll be meeting up with the officer recruiter. You know, they'll be getting all your documentation and things that you need to show that you are worthy of going the officer route. I think you do have to start like getting recommendations and filling out essays and things like that. And I know a big thing that deterred me was you have to have a 3.5 GPA from college. I only had a 3.3, and I'm just like, well, dang, you know, 3.3 is good, you know, but they were like, okay, you need to have a 3.5. And the process coming in as a civilian is way more competitive than already being in and going green to gold. And when you come in, you have to take the ASVAB and score a 110 on the GT score. I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I did score a 108. I was 2 points off from scoring a 110 on my GT score, but I have no doubt in my mind that I could have took the ASVAB again and made that 110. But that goes into another part of my reasoning, that I didn't care to wait on the officer path because it just felt like a lot of additional steps that I didn't yet care to take at that time. But anyway, yeah, so you can do the normal route, go in through OCS, you'll go to basic training, and you wouldn't go to ART, you'll go to OCS and learn how to be a leader, and from there you will be in the military as a second lieutenant. Like I just mentioned, another way is, which a lot of people will preach to you, especially enlisted recruiters, is that, hey, come in as enlisted, you can always do green and gold. But this is the trick, y'all. Yes, you can do green and gold, but you have to have been in a minimum of 2 years as enlisted. And if you're already in the military, you know how it is being an active duty enlisted soldier. You have to work twice as hard and get into a lot of people's good graces in order for them to recommend you go green and gold. So if for whatever reason you were to come in and you do not perform as a top tier soldier, that could possibly deter you from being able to go in through green and gold. And you can't account for that at the beginning when you haven't even gotten into the military yet. So you don't even know how you're gonna perform once you're in. Then I definitely say don't put all your eggs in one basket, that you can always go officer. Yes, you can, but I'm telling you right now, as I'm going through the process of switching gears to go officer, now that I'm in and I'm getting more knowledge and advice on the paths I can take, it is much harder because now I gotta worry about my everyday duties as a junior enlisted soldier that they're trying to mold into being an NCO, which is a completely different mission than being molded into being an officer. Another way that you can come in the military as an officer is speaking with an AMEDD recruiter, which kind of ties into me saying if you have a higher level degree, a license, or anything that the military can use, AMEDD recruiters, the Army Medical Department, their biggest goal is to get in civilians that have those medical degrees, and you will just come in through a scholarship that allow you to come in through a certain program. Say for instance, for me, I could come in through the MSW program. They'll send me to the University of Kentucky. I'll train there, continue to get my degree, and then they'll send me to my first duty station where I can now be in as an officer. And it's a lot that goes into taking the paths with AMEDD recruiters, which I'm also still learning. I know that I might not be quoting the perfect ways to do these things because, like I said, I am still learning this stuff myself, but I'm just trying to put it out there so you can start like, oh, I remember KP was saying something about an AMEDD recruiter. Let me do my research on the AMEDD recruiters. So now I just want to get into some of the pros and cons that you might be hearing about going enlisted versus going officer. And one of the main things you might be hearing is that, yes, a big pro that the officers have is that they have a better quality of life. Automatically, they'll get BAH. They are not to come to a barracks room. They might be in little barracks when they go to like BOLIC and things like that where they're with other officers, but they never have them in the same environments with enlisted soldiers. And of course, when you're in the barracks, that's enlisted soldiers, so they put them in their own places, because that goes into the next pro or con to you, which is officers are not allowed to fraternize with enlisted soldiers. Personally, this was something that I was kind of like, really? You telling me if I met this cool ass chick, I couldn't hang out with her if she's enlisted because I'm an officer? Now, I don't know how you feel about that. You might not even care. You might like that your pool of friends will be limited, but at the time, I feel like, dang, I know it's not gonna be more officers than enlisted, and you're telling me I can only hang out with other officers. What they get on my nerves? You know, what if they're too uppity because we're officers? You know, you never know. And that's just one thing they'll tell you, is that you cannot fraternize with enlisted. Another thing you will hear, which is maybe a con, or depending on how you look at it, is that officers are the managerial roles. They're basically the CEOs of the department, and because of that, they're considered paper pushers. You know, a lot of what they do is implementing the mission and NCOs execute the mission. They're the ones that they go to all the meetings, they do all the paperwork, they sign all the documents. If something is going on with the soldier, it is going to be sent up to the officer in that section, in that unit, which is usually the commander. Commanders specifically hold a lot of weight, but in general, officers are the ones that are handling a lot of the paperwork. And that is something that you will also come to learn, is that NCOs are the ones that deal with soldiers one-on-one. They're the ones that train soldiers. They're the ones that lead the soldiers. And some people find pride in that. Some people don't like the fact that if they're an officer, they won't deal with the soldiers that are really doing the work and actually being able to come in and sit down and talk with them, because that's not their job on a day-to-day basis as it is with an NCO. And yeah, you could tell that that really depends on how you look at it. You know, I know some people like going through the process of being NCOs and then direct commissioning over through green and gold, which I'm going to touch on next. Is that people will tell you that NCOs are the backbone of the Army, which is true. That's in our NCOs creed. We are the backbone of the Army because we are the ones that are doing the work. And of course, I'm not an NCO yet, but they're molding me to be an NCO. I'm already doing NCO stuff. I'm already mentally ready to talk like one. So we're the ones that physically get down and dirty, and we handle all the groundwork. And you will hear coming in, especially from recruiters, that you will be respected way more as an officer if you come in enlisted first and then go officer, because then your enlisted soldiers will look at you as understanding our side, rather than, oh, you came in after school, you don't know anything about the Army, only thing you have over me right now is your education, whereas I have the experience and I have all these other things over you, and I possibly am the better soldier, but you're making more money than me. And you will possibly look at that as something to consider. Me personally, I did look at that being something to take in, because of course I do want to see what both sides feel like. I think now that I'm in, it is cool that I get a chance to see both sides before I make the jump to become an officer. But I can only imagine if I would have came in as a straight up officer, I would have assumed at the time that it would have been something that I was lacking in, that I really couldn't give my department, that I would have to make up for it in other ways. Remember, that's not true. That's just a perception that you might have making a decision, and what people might be telling you is something that people on the other side look at, which are the other side is people that's already in the military. And right now, I just want to touch on the biggest thing that I hear from people that I've been speaking with that have been asking me about trying to go officer because they have degrees, is that they keep hearing, or they keep feeling like they don't want the responsibility that comes with being an officer, and they don't know what to expect, which is, I was the same way. I was like, if you're telling me I get paid more money to do the job, what am I doing that allows me to make more money than them? I'm like, it has to be a catch. And I'm going to tell you right now, the catch is you're going to be doing a lot of work regardless. You're going to be responsible for everything regardless. As a lower enlisted soldier, as a junior enlisted soldier, you're going to be the one that they make do. Whereas when you become an NCO, you're the one that's going to be teaching and training the people below you. And as an officer, you're the one that is implementing, creating the mission that is to be carried out by the NCOs. So everybody in their own way has responsibilities, and a lot of responsibility, and it really just depends on what is more fitting of you. But something I've caught, y'all, and it's not any shade to any NCO that I work with, it's just a real straight up fact, and it's not to compare and make it seem like people with degrees are automatically better than people without degrees. But the way I look at it is, when you do take that time to go to school for 4 years, that is another level of discipline that you had to create early on. You had to go to school, create time management, and get through a university's curriculum, which a lot of people go to a university and they don't finish. And it's all for a reason, because it is an entire process of going to college and completing your studies and actually doing what you gotta do to actually come out with good grades. It's not as simple as just saying, oh, I completed high school, you did what you had to do to just get your diploma. No, it was a next step up that you had to do for yourself. And the things that they teach you in college is to be analytical, how to research, how to communicate, how to write papers, how to be more professional into the workforce. And those are things that you were learning early on, whereas the people that were already went straight into the military right after high school, they didn't didn't get that experience. They got that experience through the military, but you had to pay to get that experience, and they got it not in a bad way, but they got it for free. So I do see why they choose to say, hey, you can come in higher ranking if you went to school, because you had nothing to do with the military at that time, and you chose to make that decision for yourself, and then you executed it properly. So yes, you get to come in higher ranking than the other soldiers. And remember, that is something that the soldiers that are currently in the military that came straight from high school are aspiring to have. So I say that to say, when you come into the military as a soldier that came in as a specialist with already education behind them, you will notice that in small ways. You will notice things that you know how to analyze and implement that task better, but you can't say nothing because now you have taken that true power away from yourself that officers get paid to do. They get paid to create. They get paid to analyze, to allow a task to be completed most efficiently for the entire mission, for accomplishment of the mission. They know how to do that, and they were taught how to do that even better, whereas NCOs are taught to train, just lead by example, show, but not really talk about all it comes into it at the top. And I don't want to say that in a way that is meant to be offensive, but I'm just saying you will feel like in some ways that you could do a lot of things better than your NCOs can. And it's not to shit on them, honestly. It's just really to just, hey, honestly, when you come in as an enlisted soldier with a degree, you will realize that you did put a lot of time into completing and getting that degree under your belt. And the fact that you're in and you're going to be surrounded by people that did not yet take that type of leap, and now you're taking this leap as the military, plus that you're going to feel like you're a tad bit, doing a little bit better than they are. And I think that you just should look at it like, yeah, you did put more time into more things than they did, because they came to the military right after high school, but you did that as well. You went to the military and you completed college, so now you did two things rather than just straight up entering the workforce, which I think gives you the leeway on them. And a lot of your NCOs will have not completed any further education but military education, and you're going to have to do that as well. So now you're going to have civilian education, you're going to have military experience, and military education. So 3 things that you will have on your counterparts, and that weighs heavily in how much you should be getting paid as a soldier. So that's something that I do want you to think about, especially if you're watching this and you have had personal conversations. Consider how much you're worth at the stage you're at and how much you will be worth in 5 years compared to the people that do not have your background, and what they will be worth in 5 years if they eventually get it, or if they never did get it and they just come in with whatever the Army or the military in general teaches them. Oh, let me throw in, the job that you have in the military will make or break your experience. And one con about going in as an officer, you will hear at the beginning, is that you cannot choose your job. And that was one thing that I had to consider, is that no, I don't want to come into the military and be a chemical brigades officer or another random officer that has nothing to do with my field of expertise. Now, it's a chance that you might get that job if you ask for it, but they can't promise you it as they can promise you a job when you come in enlisted. And that's what I did. My whole strategy here, y'all, was to come in and make sure I got 6/8 x-ray and get around other behavioral health officers, social workers, psychologists, and talk to them, get their smarts, get their advice, so that way I can already have my connect and be networking, so that way when it's time to commission in as an officer, I'll be this much closer, rather than coming in through a random MOS as enlisted and then having to figure out how to get next to the officers in psychology and behavioral health. So I do want to just end the video just kind of telling you my advice on how you should play it, and what I regret, or what I think that I should have done differently if I wanted to come in as an officer. And the main thing that I've been telling you in each part of this series so far is that you just have to be patient and do your research. Honestly, research is the biggest thing. And now that I'm in and I work around psychologists and licensed social workers and psychiatrists, since I'm behavioral health, a lot of them have so many various paths they took to be in the same position, but half of them are actually doing better than the other because they knew of a path that they could have taken that was less stress on them in the end. And I look at them and I look at captains, I'm like, wait a minute, you came in as a captain, you never had any experience with the military. Now some people will look at that like, oh, oh, you're not really a soldier then. I mean, you never got a chance to work your way up. You just came in already getting the good that life has to offer. But guess what? I am an advocate of play smart, not harder. You know, where you can finesse, go ahead and finesse the situation. And in that instance, they did what they had to do before they even entered the military. So I don't think the military needs to be hard for them. Not that hard. Because especially in the Army, you will get that soldier experience. And a lot of officers get deployed, whether they got deployed before they were an officer or once they become an officer. You will still get a chance to experience being a soldier. And I think when I came in, I was thinking as an officer, I wouldn't get the chance to feel like a soldier because my mission is completely different. And I thought that being an officer was gonna probably be boring because I don't want to be responsible for all the paperwork. Like I said, that is boring as hell. But now that I'm in and I do the exact same thing as an NCOIC, which is a non-commissioned officer in charge, I do what they do but get paid way less and have somewhat of the same smarts as them. I just had to continue to grow and increase and maximize my potential with how they do things. But I think that if I would have came in as an officer, it would have been still in my lane, still in my territory. I would have just had to learn how to do it now as the Army wants me to do it. But I already had the foundation steps in order to be a good officer. And if you know that you have those things behind you and you know a lot of people tell you what you have strengths in, where do you feel that fits better when it comes to what the NCO's mission and what the officer mission is? You need to see where you fit, because you do have to consider, hey, when you come in as an E4, we're still being told what to do, when to do it, how to do it. Everyone in the military is, but it's levels to it. And when you're E4 and below, you basically don't have any say-so, any control, not even over PFCs and privates, because they're not gonna give you that much control over them unless you become a corporal or you're a specialist that kind of been a specialist for a long time and just know everything that it is about the job. But they're gonna play you about that. They're gonna use it to their advantage if you're that type of specialist that's super high speed, know how to do everything, and you could be in a way better position that you could be getting more for your work. They're not gonna tell you that. They're gonna let you be a dummy and stay right where you at and work your way up slowly, whereas you know you can be getting paid way more money to do the same stuff that you're doing now, having the same amount of responsibility that you do now. So just to end the video, y'all, I don't want to look at either path in a pessimistic way. I just want you to see that both have its pros and its cons, and the officer route has various paths that you can take to becoming an officer. But if you feel that the officer path will be worth your time in the end, then I say start the process now, as long as you have the space and opportunity to wait and be patient for you to talk to every type of officer recruiter and talking to everyone that has experience on being officers, and just doing what you gotta do to make sure that the life you live in the military is gonna be worth it. Because so yes, y'all, like I said, big thing is to make sure you do your research and you figure out all the paths it is to take to join the military. And this has been my experience, so continue to watch, because in the next video, part 4, I'm going to tell you about my recruitment journey of going to MEPS and choosing the right MOS. So make sure you leave in the comment section if you like anything I said in this video. If you heard anything that I might have left out while talking about joining through Army, through Enlisted, that you might want to add, make sure you leave it in the comment section. But if you like this video and you like what I've had to say on my experience and my rationale and my logic about coming in enlisted instead of going officer, then definitely let me know what you think. But yes, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe to the video, and stay tuned for part 4.